Welcome back to the School of Joy.
Oh, the School of Joy.
Today,
I love that.
we're diving deep into one of history's most influential texts, the Bible,
Okay.
specifically the New Testament, using the King James Version.
All right.
I'm excited to see what insights we can uncover.
Yeah, I think you'll be surprised by how relevant these ancient teachings still are today. You know, the New Testament isn't just a religious text.
Right.
It's really a window into human nature,
Okay.
morality, and our ongoing search for meaning.
That's a great way to put it. So, to get started, can you give us a quick overview of the New Testament? What makes it different from the Old Testament?
Well, the New Testament focuses on the life and teachings of Jesus Christ. It picks up where the Old Testament left off, fulfilling many of the prophecies and promises found there.
Okay, so it's like a sequel.
Precisely. And structurally, it's divided into several key sections. You have the four Gospels, which offer different perspectives on Jesus' life and ministry. Then you have the Acts of the Apostles, which chronicles the spread of the early Christian movement. And finally, you have the letters written by various apostles and the book of Revelation.
Okay, that gives us a good roadmap. But you mentioned the Gospels offer different perspectives. Can you elaborate on that? What makes each Gospel unique?
Sure. Each gospel writer had a specific audience and purpose in mind. For example, Matthew wrote primarily for a Jewish audience,
Okay,
emphasizing how Jesus fulfilled Old Testament prophecies.
I see.
He traces Jesus' lineage back to King David, highlighting his royal heritage and messianic claims.
Oh, so he's establishing Jesus' credibility for those familiar with the Old Testament.
Exactly. Whereas Mark, writing for a more Gentile audience, focuses on Jesus' actions and miracles, demonstrating his power and authority.
So more showing than telling.
Yes, his gospel is fast-paced and action-packed, emphasizing Jesus as a divine force to be reckoned with.
So it's like different teachers tailoring their lessons to different students?
Yes.
What about Luke?
So Luke
What's his unique angle?
was a physician
Okay,
and a meticulous historian.
interesting.
He's very interested in the details of Jesus' life and ministry. He also emphasizes themes of compassion and outreach to the marginalized, highlighting Jesus' concern for the poor and outcast.
That's fascinating. So each gospel is like a piece of a puzzle, offering a different facet of who Jesus was and what he taught.
That's a great way to think about it, yeah.
What about John? How does his gospel round out the picture?
Well, John's gospel is more theological and reflective. He focuses on Jesus' identity as the Son of God and emphasizes his divine nature. His gospel is filled with profound teachings and symbolic language, inviting readers to contemplate the deeper meaning of Jesus' words and actions.
Wow, so we got four distinct voices, each contributing to a richer understanding of Jesus. It makes you appreciate the complexity of his life and message. Now, I'm curious to dive into some of the actual teachings. What are some key takeaways from the Gospels that resonate with you even today?
One that always strikes me is the radical call to love your enemies, found in Matthew chapter 5. Jesus challenges his followers to go beyond simply loving those who love them back. He urges them to extend love and compassion even to those who mistreat them.
That's a tough one. It goes against every natural instinct we have. How can we possibly apply that teaching in our everyday lives?
Well, it's definitely challenging, but I think the key is to remember that Jesus is calling us to a higher standard.
Okay.
He's asking us to reflect God's love, which is unconditional and all-encompassing.
Mm.
It doesn't mean condoning wrongdoing, but it does mean choosing compassion over resentment and seeking to understand those who are different from us.
So it's about shifting our perspective and recognizing the humanity in everyone, even those we might consider our enemies.
Yet,
What other teachings stand out as particularly relevant for our students today?
another one is the theme of faith and doubt, which we see beautifully illustrated in the story of Peter walking on water. Peter initially has faith and steps out of the boat, but then he gets distracted by the wind and waves, and he starts to sink.
Oh, that image is so powerful.
It is.
It's like a metaphor for how doubt can creep in and make us lose our footing, even when we're trying to follow Jesus. What's the lesson for us there?
I think it's a reminder that doubt is a natural part of the human experience,
Okay.
even for those closest to Jesus.
Mm.
The key is to keep our focus on him, even when we're feeling afraid or uncertain. Just like Peter cried out to Jesus when he started to sink, we can turn to him for help when our faith wavers, and he will always be there to lift us up.
That's such an encouraging message. It's good to know we're not alone in our struggles. Now, there's one more big theme you wanted to touch on, materialism versus spiritual wealth.
Ah, yes, this one hits close to home.
I bet.
Especially in today's world where we're constantly bombarded with messages about acquiring more stuff.
Yeah.
Jesus challenges this mindset through stories like the parable of the rich young man who comes to him asking what he must do to inherit eternal life.
Okay, I remember that one. What happens to him? Does he pass the test?
Well, he claims to have followed all the commandments.
Okay.
But when Jesus challenges him to sell his possessions and give to the poor, he walks away sorrowful because he's too attached to his wealth.
Hmm.
This leads Jesus to make the famous statement that it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God.
Wow, that's a powerful image. So what's the deeper message there? Is Jesus condemning wealth itself?
I don't think so. It's not about the money itself, but about our attachment to it.
Hmm.
It's about recognizing that true wealth isn't found in material possessions, but in our relationship with God and our service to others. Jesus is calling us to shift our priorities from what we have to who we are and how we use what we've been given to make a difference in the world.
So it's about using our resources, whether they're financial or otherwise, to live out our faith and contribute to something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly. And that brings us to another fascinating aspect of Jesus' teaching, his use of parables.
Ah, yes. Those little stories packed with big truths. Why do you think Jesus chose this method of teaching?
Well, parables are brilliant teaching tools because they engage the listener on multiple levels.
Okay.
They're memorable, relatable, and often contain surprising twists that challenge our assumptions and invite us to think differently.
So they're like puzzles.
Yes, they make us work a little harder to unlock their meaning. I like that.
What are some examples of parables that illustrate this point?
One of my favorites is the parable of the talents found in Matthew chapter 25. A master entrusts his servants with different amounts of money, or talents,
Okay.
and expects them to invest and multiply what he's given them.
Hmm.
The servants who do so are rewarded, while the servant who buries his talent out of fear is condemned.
So it's about taking risks, stepping out of our comfort zones, and using our gift to their fullest potential.
Exactly. It's a call to be proactive and make the most of what we've been given. It's not about sitting on the sidelines waiting for something to happen, but about actively engaging in the world and making a difference.
So it's not just about spiritual growth, it's about personal growth, taking initiative, and using our skills to create something meaningful.
Absolutely. And that connects to another key theme we see throughout the New Testament, the importance of action.
Mhm.
It's not enough to simply believe the right things. We're called to live out our faith in tangible ways. And that leads us nicely to another parable, the parable of the Good Samaritan.
Ah, yes, the classic story of compassion and unexpected kindness. What makes this parable so impactful?
It challenges our preconceived notions of who deserves our compassion.
Okay.
A Jewish man is beaten and left for dead, and both a priest and a Levite pass by without helping him. But then a Samaritan, a member of a group despised by the Jews, comes along and shows him mercy, tending to his wounds and paying for his care.
So Jesus is turning the tables and showing us that true compassion transcends social boundaries and religious differences.
Exactly. It's about seeing the needs of others, regardless of their background or beliefs, and acting with love and kindness. It's about moving beyond our comfort zones and extending a helping hand to those who need it most.
Wow, that's a powerful message, especially in today's world where divisions and prejudices often seem to be on the rise. It's a reminder that we're all connected and that compassion should be our guiding principle.
Beautifully said. And speaking of connections, that brings us to another fascinating section of the New Testament, the letters written by various apostles, particularly Paul.
Okay, those are like ancient emails, right?
Uh-huh.
Providing guidance and instruction to the early Christian communities.
Exactly. They address a wide range of topics, from theological debates to practical advice on how to live out the Christian faith in everyday life. Think of them as a blend of spiritual pep talks, theological treatises, and pastoral care letters.
So they were like a lifeline for those early believers, helping them navigate the challenges of following Jesus in a hostile world.
Precisely. And what's amazing is how relevant these letters still are today. They offer timeless wisdom on topics like love, forgiveness, faith, and the nature of the church. They grapple with questions that continue to resonate with us centuries later.
Well, let's open up this ancient mailbox. What are some specific excerpts that stand out to you as particularly relevant for our students today?
One that always comes to mind is from Romans chapter 12,
Okay.
where Paul urges believers to present their bodies as living sacrifices,
Okay.
holy and acceptable to God. He calls them to be transformed by the renewing of their minds and to not conform to the patterns of this world.
So it's about a radical transformation, a complete shift in perspective and lifestyle.
Exactly. It's about allowing God to reshape our thinking, our values, and our actions. It's about living differently, standing out from the crowd, and pursuing a life that reflects God's will rather than the fleeting trends of the world.
Okay, that's a challenge for sure, but a worthy one. What other golden nuggets can we glean from these letters?
Another one that never fails to inspire me is from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, often called the love chapter. Paul describes the qualities of love in such beautiful and profound language. He says that love is patient, kind, not envious, not boastful, not proud. It's not self-seeking, easily angered, or keeps a record of wrongs. It rejoices with the truth, protects, trusts, hopes, and perseveres.
Wow, that's a high bar.
It is.
It's not just about romantic love, but about a way of being, a way of treating everyone with compassion and grace.
Exactly. And Paul concludes by saying that faith, hope, and love abide, but the greatest of these is love. He's emphasizing that love is the foundation of everything, the most important virtue we can cultivate.
So it's about putting love into action in our relationships, our families, our communities, and even in how we treat those we disagree with.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of the New Testament.
Hmm.
It challenges us to think differently,
Hmm.
to live differently,
Right.
to love differently.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from the four Gospels to the letters of Paul. It feels like we've just completed a crash course in New Testament 101. But I know there's still one more stop on our journey, the book of Revelation.
Ah, yes, the grand finale. That's where we'll explore the wild world of symbolic imagery, apocalyptic visions, and the ultimate triumph of good over evil.
Okay, I'm definitely intrigued, but we're going to have to save that for part 2 of our deep dive.
Until then, class dismissed. But keep those thinking caps on, and we'll see you back in the School of Joy soon.
Sounds good. Welcome back to the School of Joy. Last time we laid the groundwork,
Yes, we did.
exploring the Gospels,
Uh-huh.
Jesus' teachings,
Right.
and those insightful letters from the apostles.
Lots of good stuff in those letters.
Now buckle up as we venture into the uncharted territory of Revelation, the New Testament's grand finale.
It's a book that's both captivating and challenging, full of vivid imagery and symbolic language.
It definitely feels different from anything else we've encountered so far. What makes Revelation so unique?
Well, Revelation falls into a category called apocalyptic literature.
Hmm,
It's not meant to be interpreted literally,
okay.
but rather as a series of visions and metaphors that point to a deeper spiritual reality.
So it's more like a dream you're trying to decipher than a historical account.
Exactly. And like a dream, it's packed with symbolism and allegory, which has led to a wide range of interpretations over the centuries.
I can see how that would spark debate and intrigue. What are some of the key symbols and themes we should be aware of as we journey through Revelation?
One of the most prominent symbols is the number 7. You see it everywhere. 7 churches, 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 bowls of wrath. In biblical numerology, 7 represents completeness and perfection. It's used in Revelation to emphasize the totality of God's judgment and the fullness of his victory.
So 7 is like a divine stamp of approval, a sign that God's in control and his plan is unfolding.
Precisely. Another key theme is the cosmic battle between good and evil.
Okay.
Revelation depicts this struggle in epic terms, with angels and demons, dragons and beasts, clashing in a fight for ultimate power.
It sounds intense. Who are the main players in this cosmic drama?
On the side of good, we have God,
Okay.
the Lamb, representing Jesus, and the angels. They embody holiness, righteousness, and divine power. On the side of evil, we have Satan, the dragon, and the beast, representing rebellion, wickedness, and the forces of darkness.
So it's a classic showdown between light and darkness played out on a grand scale.
Yes, and throughout Revelation, we witness these forces clashing in a series of judgments and battles that ultimately culminate in the final victory of good over evil.
That message of hope and ultimate victory must have been incredibly encouraging for the early Christians who were facing persecution.
You're right. It's a powerful reminder that even in the midst of suffering and uncertainty, God is sovereign and his purposes will prevail.
Speaking of hope, one of the most captivating images in Revelation is the description of the New Jerusalem. What's the significance of this dazzling city descending from heaven?
The New Jerusalem symbolizes the ultimate fulfillment of God's promises. A perfect world where there is no more pain, sorrow, or death.
Wow.
It's a vision of hope and restoration, a reminder that our current reality is not the end of the story.
It's like a glimpse of paradise, a reminder that something beautiful awaits those who persevere through trials.
Precisely. And the invitation to take the water of life freely in Revelation 22 echoes this theme of hope and restoration. It's a beautiful picture of God's grace being freely available to all who thirst for it.
So it's a message of inclusivity and boundless love, reminding us that God's arms are open to everyone.
Exactly. Revelation, despite its complex imagery and symbolism, ultimately offers a message of hope and encouragement. It reminds us that God is in control,
Right.
that evil will be vanquished, and that a glorious future awaits those who remain faithful.
That's a powerful message to hold on to, especially in times of uncertainty and struggle. But I have to admit, some parts of Revelation are pretty intense and even a bit terrifying.
Sure.
How do we reconcile those images with the message of hope.
Well, it's important to remember that John, the author of Revelation, was writing to encourage Christians who were facing persecution under the Roman Empire.
Hmm.
His visions, though symbolic, reflect the very real suffering and anxieties of his time.
So it's like he's using dramatic imagery to convey the gravity of the situation and the assurance that God will ultimately intervene.
Exactly. The intense imagery serves to highlight the stark contrast between the forces of darkness and the ultimate victory of light.
Hmm.
It's a reminder that even in the midst of chaos and evil, God's power and love will ultimately prevail.
That's a powerful perspective. It reminds us that even though we may experience hardship and darkness in this life, there's a greater reality that transcends our current circumstances.
Absolutely. And even though Revelation was written centuries ago,
Right.
its themes of spiritual warfare, the allure of worldly power,
Yeah.
and the ultimate triumph of good over evil resonate deeply with our own experiences today.
You're right. We still grapple with these same issues on a personal and societal level, but it's encouraging to know that the message of Revelation transcends time and offers timeless wisdom for navigating these challenges.
Precisely. It's a call to persevere in faith,
Okay.
to resist the allure of darkness,
Mm.
and to hold fast to the hope of God's ultimate victory.
Our journey through the New Testament has been filled with profound insights and challenging teachings.
It has.
From the Gospels to the letters and now Revelation,
Uh-huh.
we've seen how these ancient texts continue to speak to the deepest longings of the human heart.
It's been a privilege to explore these timeless truths with you. What are some of the key takeaways that have resonated most deeply with you?
I'm struck by the way the New Testament weaves together stories, teachings, and visions to paint a multifaceted picture of who Jesus is and what it means to follow him.
Okay.
It's a message of hope,
Uh-huh.
challenge,
Right.
and ultimately transformation.
Beautifully said. And as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'd encourage our listeners to reflect on how the themes we've explored resonate with their own lives. What insights have challenged your assumptions?
Okay,
What teachings have ignited a spark of hope or inspired you to action?
that's a great question. The New Testament isn't just an ancient text to be studied.
Right.
It's a living word that speaks to our present realities and invites us to live differently.
Absolutely. It's a journey of discovery, growth, and transformation. And as we continue to explore its depths, we may find ourselves surprised by the ways it illuminates our paths and shapes our understanding of the world around us.
Welcome back to the School of Joy. We've journeyed through the Gospels, delved into the teachings of Jesus and the apostles,
It's been quite a journey.
and now we stand on the precipice of something truly unique,
Here we are.
the Book of Revelation.
It's a book that's both captivating and challenging, often seen as the most mysterious and complex book in the Bible.
It's definitely sparked a lot of curiosity and debate over the centuries. What makes Revelation so different from everything else we've explored so far?
Well, Revelation is written in a genre called apocalyptic literature,
Okay.
which uses highly symbolic language and imagery to convey its message. It's not meant to be interpreted literally, but rather as a series of visions and metaphors
Okay.
that point to a deeper spiritual reality.
So it's more like a divine poem or a dream filled with symbolic language than a straightforward historical account.
Exactly. And like a dream, it can be challenging to decipher the meaning behind those symbols.
Right.
That's part of what makes it so fascinating and intriguing.
I agree.
It invites us to engage our imaginations and grapple with the deeper truths it's trying to convey.
Okay, I'm starting to see why Revelation has captivated readers for centuries. It's like a puzzle that we have to piece together using the clues embedded in the symbolism. What are some of the key symbols and themes that we should be aware of as we delve into this enigmatic book?
Well, one of the most prominent symbols is the number 7,
7.
which appears repeatedly throughout Revelation. You see it in the 7 churches, 7 seals, 7 trumpets,
Right.
and 7 bowls of wrath.
Okay.
In biblical numerology, 7 represents completeness and perfection.
Okay.
And it's used here to emphasize the totality of God's judgment and the fullness of his victory.
So 7 is like a divine stamp of approval, a sign that God's in control and his plan is unfolding according to his perfect timing.
Precisely. It's a reminder that even amidst chaos and uncertainty, God's purposes will ultimately prevail. Another key theme is the cosmic battle between good and evil, depicted in epic terms with angels and demons, dragons and beasts, clashing in a struggle for ultimate power.
It sounds intense, almost like a scene from a fantasy epic. Who are the main players in this cosmic drama?
On the side of good, we have God,
Okay.
the Lamb, who represents Jesus,
Uh-huh.
and the angels. They embody holiness, righteousness,
Right.
and divine power. On the side of evil, we have Satan, the dragon,
Okay.
and the beast,
Right.
representing rebellion, wickedness, and the forces of darkness that seek to oppose God's reign.
So it's a classic showdown between light and darkness, played out on a grand scale, with the fate of humanity hanging in the balance.
Yes. And throughout Revelation, we witness these forces clashing
Right.
in a series of judgments and battles that ultimately culminate in the final victory of good over evil. It's a powerful message of hope and encouragement for believers,
Hmm.
assuring them that no matter how dark things may seem,
Hmm.
God is sovereign
Right.
and his purposes will ultimately prevail.
That message of hope must have been incredibly encouraging for the early Christians who were facing persecution and hardship.
You're right. It's a powerful reminder that even in the midst of suffering and uncertainty,
Hmm.
we can hold fast to the hope that God is working all things together for good,
Okay.
even if we can't see the full picture in the present moment.
Speaking of hope, one of the most captivating and beautiful images in Revelation is the description of the New Jerusalem,
Ah,
descending from heaven like a dazzling bride adorned with precious jewels.
beautiful imagery.
What's the significance of this breathtaking city?
The New Jerusalem symbolizes the ultimate fulfillment of God's promises,
Hmm.
a perfect world where there is no more pain, sorrow, or death.
It represents the restoration of all things,
Yes.
a place where God dwells fully with his people and where harmony and righteousness reign.
It's like a glimpse of paradise.
It is.
A reminder that our current reality, with all its brokenness and suffering, is not the end of the story. There's something far more glorious awaiting those who trust in God.
Exactly. And the invitation to take the water of life freely in Revelation 22 echoes this theme of boundless grace and restoration. It's an open invitation to all who thirst for true life,
Yes,
for forgiveness and reconciliation with God.
beautiful.
So it's a message of inclusivity and boundless love, reminding us that God's arms are open to everyone,
Absolutely.
regardless of their past mistakes or their current circumstances.
Precisely. Revelation, despite its complex imagery and sometimes terrifying visions,
Right.
ultimately offers a message of hope and encouragement.
Mm.
It assures us that God is in control,
Mm.
that evil will be vanquished,
Right.
and that a glorious future awaits those who remain faithful.
That's a powerful message to hold on to, especially in times of uncertainty and struggle. But I have to admit, some parts of Revelation are pretty intense
Uh-huh.
and even a bit terrifying. How do we reconcile those images with the overall message of hope and God's ultimate victory?
Well, it's important to remember that John, the author of Revelation, was writing to encourage Christians who were facing persecution under the Roman Empire.
Right.
His visions, though symbolic, reflect the very real suffering and anxieties of his time.
Hmm.
He was trying to convey the gravity of the situation and the assurance that God would ultimately intervene.
So he's using dramatic imagery to highlight the stark contrast between the forces of darkness and the ultimate victory of light.
Exactly.
It's like a cosmic battle playing out, with the forces of evil seemingly gaining ground but ultimately being defeated by God's overwhelming power and love.
The intense imagery serves to highlight the stark contrast between the darkness of the present age
Okay.
and the glorious future that awaits those who remain faithful to God. It's a reminder that even when things seem bleak and hopeless,
Hmm.
we can trust that God is working all things together for good, even if we can't see the full picture in the present moment.
That's a powerful perspective. It reminds us that even though we may experience hardship and darkness in this life, there's a greater reality that transcends our current circumstances.
Absolutely. And even though Revelation was written centuries ago,
Right.
its themes of spiritual warfare, the allure of worldly power,
Yeah.
and the ultimate triumph of good over evil resonate deeply with our own experiences today. We still see these same forces at play in the world around us.
Hmm.
And Revelation offers timeless wisdom for navigating these challenges.
You're right. We still grapple with those same issues on both a personal and societal level. The temptation to compromise our values for the sake of power or security,
Right.
the struggle to remain hopeful amid suffering and injustice,
Uh-huh.
the longing for a world where righteousness and peace prevail. These are universal human experiences that transcend time and culture.
Precisely. And Revelation speaks directly to those longings, offering a vision of hope and a call to persevere in faith,
Okay.
to resist the allure of darkness, and to hold fast to the promise of God's ultimate victory.
Right.
It's a reminder that we're not alone in this struggle,
Hmm.
and that God is working all things together for the good of those who love him.
Our journey through the New Testament has been filled with profound insights and challenging teachings.
It has.
From the Gospels to the letters and now Revelation,
Right.
we've seen how these ancient texts continue to speak to the deepest longings of the human heart, They offer guidance, challenge,
Uh-huh.
and ultimately hope.
It's been a privilege to explore these timeless truths with you. As we conclude our deep dive into the New Testament,
Hmm.
what are some of the key takeaways that have resonated most deeply with you?
I'm struck by the way the New Testament weaves together stories, teachings, and visions to paint such a rich and multifaceted picture of who Jesus is and what it means to follow him.
Okay.
It's a message that encompasses both challenge and comfort,
Hmm.
calling us to a life of radical love and sacrifice,
Uh-huh.
while also assuring us of God's unwavering love and ultimate victory.
Beautifully said. And as we wrap up this episode, I'd encourage our listeners to reflect on how the themes we've explored resonate with their own lives.
Hmm.
What insights have challenged your assumptions? What teachings have ignited a spark of hope or inspired you to action? What questions or uncertainties remain as you continue to explore the depths of the New Testament?
That's a great point. The New Testament isn't just an ancient text to be studied.
Right.
It's a living word that speaks to our present realities and invites us to live differently. It's a journey of discovery, growth,
Absolutely.
and transformation.
Yes.
And as we continue to explore its depths, we may find ourselves surprised by the ways it illuminates our paths and shapes our understanding of the world around us.
And remember, our exploration doesn't end here. There's always more to discover, more to learn, more to experience in our ongoing journey of faith.
Hmm.
So keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep that school of joy alive within your hearts as you engage with the timeless truths of the New Testament.